heroes who are doing amazing things to help others. Remember to tune in every Tuesday morning at 10, starting soon.
This is Barbara Barragan-Perea with Delta Flows, a radio show by the Voice of Stockton and Restore the Delta. This is the weekly radio show where we discuss everything Delta related: the environment, water management, water quality, farming, history and culture, public events, recreation, Delta food, and the arts. Tune into Delta Flows on KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at KXVS Radio.
KXVS 92.1 coming soon. KXVS.
This program does not reflect the views of KXVS management or KXVS, the Voice of Stockton.
Hi, this is Joy Neas with Behind the Art Scene at KXVS, the Voice of Stockton. Glad to be back with you. We've switched the program to Tuesdays from noon to 1, and today my guest is Jimmy Descant. He's a traveling artist, and I met him during Stockton Arts Week. I'd like to introduce Jimmy Descant.
Hi, Joy. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for coming today.
Sure thing. Thank you for having me.
So I thought your story was so interesting that you decided to go on a little adventure and see where the road would take you, and it brought you to Stockton. So what have you been doing in Stockton? How did you come to Stockton?
Well, I've never been here. I've heard about it. I've been up and down the state all this year. I grew up in New Orleans. Short, fast history. I grew up in New Orleans. I was in the music business for 15 years, and then I found an old vacuum cleaner and became an assemblage sculptor, and then moved to Colorado, small art town called Salida in the Rocky Mountains, spelled same way as California's Salida. And my wife is a nurse. And the beginning of the year, we rented out our house in the Rockies and took our old camper and our cats and said, we're going to go on a year or two adventure, her doing travel nurse contracts and me doing travel artists from out of the back of my truck instead of in my big studio and junkyard in Colorado, like I've been 10 years. So we have been up and down the state. And my wife got a job in Lodi for 3 months, and we found a place to live in Stockton, and we just moved in 6 weeks ago, and we're only here till the end of January.
Yeah. What are some of the other events you've done?
Yes, when I got to town, I did not know about Arts Week in Stockton. This is kind of my MO, is to go from being an established artist in one spot to showing up somewhere and starting brand new wherever I go. So when I got to town, I heard about Arts Week and started contacting the art organizations and museums and galleries, things like this. This is a way I start off and started introducing myself, and immediately it was like, okay, I have to get on it. So I was put in touch with you to do Art Splash at the old Elks building downtown, and we had a gypsy jazz band and cool opening. A lot of folks came out, and I started making a piece of art in front of people, which I usually do out here on the road. I set up a table and raw materials and start with the inspiration of the parts I have and try to come up with a statement. Instead of just something pretty and for folks to look at, I want to make things that say something and have some commentary on the place that I am. And so that event was fantastic. The next thing I did was Throwback Thursday on Miracle Mile, which I'm living like just a few blocks away from. It winds up in this centralized spot. And so the piece I started with your event, I continued on Miracle Mile for Throwback Thursday during Art Week. And then the next thing, I had 3 gigs in 1 week, just fresh into town. And the next thing was the Hospice Foundation benefit.
The Over the Edge.
Yes, the Over the Edge, which I found was fun. They got in touch with me to come and do an event. And I do this other stuff called, it's workshops, assemblage workshops, where I bring like pieces of wood and give kids and adults hammers to make assemblage art. But I usually give them a piece of board too. But for the Hospice Foundation, I was in here so quick, I didn't have wood. So I brought 50 pounds of junk debris and wire and let kids and adults make necklaces and bracelets for Halloween. Nice and jangly kind of thing from all the stuff that's left over from me making my sculptures. I hate to throw anything away. I try to keep everything out of the landfill as much as I can. And so I just pour this stuff out and people are like, what? I can have this for free? Yes, it was all for free, and taught them how you didn't need a class like a regular jewelry class, how to make things out of wire. And that was fun. We did, at least like 40 pieces for the morning while we watched people rappel off the building, which I didn't get to do.
Off the Medico Dental building. Those were wonderful. I saw some of the little bracelets the kids made, and I had a space right next to you. I was doing chalk drawing for the day. So
yes, I was very artistic on the sidewalk, making art everywhere. This is a fantastic thing. The kids that came by at first, they get a little hesitant because they don't know what's going on. So I had some examples that I made, and once they get into it, then they're off to the races. You don't have to tell them anything. They pick and choose their own combo. But part of my my process of this is to help people get into their message, to find out what they want to make, because a lot of people don't know. And you start talking to them, you start getting them to tell you a story, and they start coming up with ideas, and you give them the confidence that anything they make is not wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's no wrong way of doing it. Yeah. I'm just showing techniques and providing raw materials and letting them go at it. And after a while, they're kind of like, okay, all right, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. And so I've been told to shut up many times because I get enthusiastic, and they're like, okay, I got it. Leave me alone. Which is fun. It's okay. That's fun, and no hard feelings.
And then you found UOP, the Reynolds Gallery, and you said you did a whole performance art at the exhibit.
Yeah, so me and my wife are riding our classic bikes. We have 2 old cruisers that we take along with us everywhere, and hot rod everything. Our bikes are really ornate from the 50s, and we were just riding around, and we were going through University of Pacific and just came across the arts galleries there. And so we saw the show that was going on, classes that were going on, and there was a student show coming up, but it was kind of ambiguous as to if the students were joining or if it was just students. So I got in touch with them, and it turned out it was just for students of the college. But I told them what the other things I do, and Lisa Cooperman got in touch with me and said, if you want to, we can do a workshop with adults and students and public. And I said, that's fantastic. So in the midst of the Reynolds Gallery, which has all the art on the walls and sculptures and all, they set up work tables that they said were okay for construction and destruction, which is good. And I went to the local restore and bought some big wood panels and cut them all up into about 10-inch squares. And I have a big toolbox full of hammers and tools. And I brought like 10 pounds of nails, and my process is to teach adults and kids how to attach. They might see how things go together, but how to actually make it strong and make it live. So with nails, wire, and glue, we had about, I think about 30 people came, and we did over 20 projects in 2 hours. Some folks were really into it. Some folks were a little hesitant, but all of a sudden the whole room was a sound of hammering and going through all my junk, all my debris, and figuring out their own process. And in 2 hours, it was amazing. They came up with so much good stuff, good statements, good imagery, good just contrasting ideas with the parts and statements. Like I said, this is the point, to get to actually say something and not just something pretty. So this was a good scene. There was some fire involved, intentional, for showmanship. It's like people are nailing stuff to the boards, and then they find that the board is nailed to the work table. So we have an answer for that, because I've run into this many times. We have an answer for that. Big pry bar, use a big hammer, pry it off the work table. They're freaking out, oh, I ruined it. No, you didn't ruin it. And there's nails sticking out the back. Now my fingers are getting stuck. We have a solution. So I take it, I always bring an angle grinder, and I have like a bucket to hide it. But for showmanship and for function, I take the angle grinder, cut all the metal off the back, so it's creating these big sparks, and people are freaking out. Oh, wow, they're going to catch on fire. So Lisa, just make sure you got a fire extinguisher somewhere. I've done this a lot, but it's a lot for show, and to get people even more excited. So we cut off the metal off the back, and that way they're not sticking their fingers, and then when they hang the piece on a wall, it's not poking holes in their wall. And so it's form and function and effects. I used to work for cover bands in the 80s. I learned a lot about theater and showmanship, fog and fire, and flash pots and costume changes and all this. So I try to bring that kind of excitement to these kind of workshops too.
So was anyone videotaping any of that? Did you get a little video?
Some of it. I got some, but not enough. Lisa got some, I believe, and might be on their website, and I sent her all the pictures and all. But it's fun when all these people are hammering away and going at it, and it gets to be cumulative, and it goes on, and people start getting excited, and they start swinging those hammers bigger, louder and louder, and then it dies down for a little while, and they start thinking about it and placing, and it's an up and down thing. But 2 hours is kind of fast. I try not to give anybody a time limit, and other events I've had, there was no time limit. You could be here as long as you want, and you could take as much stuff as you need to, or you can take stuff home and continue your project. I had little Altoid boxes and little Tic Tac boxes and stuff, and people could put their stuff in their pockets. I'm not worried about that, because there's no end to debris. There's no end to stuff that I use to make my art.
Yeah. And then I just saw you at the Peaceful Holiday Faire. You were selling a few things.
Yeah, that was a nice little thing too at the Methodist Church on Pacific. I had found out about that as well when I first got into town, and I applied, and they accepted me. And I live like 2 blocks away from the church, so I loaded everything I needed just onto a hand truck and rolled it down the street like somebody going to market. And I'm sure the neighbors like, oh, here comes some more homeless people, except that this guy's got a lot. This guy's got a lot of stuff. He's collecting all this stuff, or he's dropping it somewhere. So I'm rolling down the street making a lot of racket, and I get there, and it was very nice craft objects and art that people were showing, and I had more positive political pieces mixed with my debris stuff. Like I'll take this debris and put it like in a tray in the shape of hearts and call it robot debris hearts. And then cover in resin and put a hanger on the back, so it's good for wall, or it can actually be a Christmas ornament too. And people like it because they're figuring out all the little pieces that I use. And it can be burnt out drill bits that I've used. I always have a bucket next to my drill press in my shop that anything that's broken or gets worn out or I find, it just goes in there, for investment in the future, like what I've been doing on the road.
So are there any other things you've done in Stockton I missed, or is that it?
No, that's it. That's been four, let's see, that's four.
So that's five.
Five events. Yes, five events in the last 6 weeks. Yeah. And
you've been busy.
Since I've been on the road, that's kind of, I have to reintroduce myself. I have to start completely over wherever I go, because I'm known in New Orleans. I'm known in Salida and all of Colorado. I do small assemblage pieces. I used to do a lot of rocket ships. Now I do more Western Futurism. It's Native American imagery, portraits, scenes, being influenced from the deserts and the mountains. But coming out on the road, I knew that I would have to just cold call people and then show them videos, show them examples of my work possibly. And this is what happened in Davis. Me and my wife started in Texas with friends on this road trip, and then she got a job at the hospital in Davis, and we found an old motor court right in town that was like straight out of the 40s and 50s that we could park our camper at. The cats could be outside. I could do art right outside the camper. It was filled with characters and folks that had been there 20, 30 years and wondering what I was doing. And so I approached the galleries in town, and they hemmed and hawed about it. And I don't have much time. So I'm pressing them hard. But there's an old Art Deco movie theater called the Varsity, and it's beautiful. Inside is beautiful, great murals from the 30s. It was unbelievable. So I just emailed the owner and said, look, I want to set up a table and make a piece of art out on the sidewalk in front of your place. Is that okay? And he looked at my website. He said, I don't know who you are or what this really is, but yeah, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. And so I never met him. I talked to the kids who were running the place. It's like, I'm going to plug in this extension cord. I'm out here. He knows about it. So I had people walking by all day long. It was all day into the evening, and I worked on one piece of art and finished it at about 9 o'clock at night, with people coming in and out of the movie theater. And I had a theme going, and it was a cool scene because I could work out these ideas, and then people would ask me questions, not knowing what I had some other examples. And when I was done, that was it. That piece was finished. And it was a train locomotive that I did on an old 1970s decoupage board. And it worked out that it's like I was going with who built the railroads in the first place. The Chinese immigrants, who sweated through this, who were in the West. And then compound that on the changing demographics of UC Davis. Chinese students are rising, the enrollment is rising and rising. So they're coming here new and getting education and stuff. And a lot of my stuff has Native American aspects. So I called this piece a Chinese train then and now with Indians implied. Because nobody asked the Indians if they could come through, and Native Americans are still here. It was a big mix of metaphors, but it meant something for that time in Davis and what is going on and what is the past. So I lay it on thick with my metaphors.
So once your pieces are done, what do you end up doing with those?
Well, they'll be displayed. They're displayed at the next gig that I do with an explanation and a title. And there's a place called Pence Gallery in Davis, and I approached the owners there, and since galleries work a year or two ahead of time, they can't usually give me any space. But for a second Saturday opening, yes, come and be on a patio. So I did this event at Pence Gallery where there was a band, there was a full-on exhibit going on inside, and I worked on another piece of statement art all day into the night until I couldn't see anymore. Even though I had lights, it got so dark. But this was till like 9 o'clock at night. And I did a piece called Olive versus Almond. And I did this crossed arrow kind of piece, which is kind of, like my tattoo here, about aspects of water and growing and bringing in water or letting it flow or creating dams. And this is stuff that I didn't know about till I got here. The importance of water, aspects of farming, the contentious issues. So I did this piece that shows both sides, and crossed arrows is a sign of friendship. Broken arrows, sign of peace. And so I laid it on as an olive branch mixed metaphors all over the place, and the gallery owners just watched as this was going on, as did the viewers and the people who came to the exhibit who didn't know I was going to be there, most of them. But it was a great time, and I had another piece of very location driven statement and art. So my plan is to make a journal of all these events and what I used and why I did these kind of arts in these places, and the people I meet and all that. So this will be, a year or two. It'll be a hell of a timeline, story. And I'm going on straight inspiration from where I am, what I'm using, and why I'm doing this on the road.
So can you talk about this piece? You made this during the Art Splash.
Yes, this was, like I said, I hadn't been to Stockton before, so I went to see where the Elks Lodge was downtown off of Weber, and brought some raw materials. And we first met, we had emailed back and forth, and so I brought some stuff and had a great gypsy band that was playing as well. Got to meet these crazy folks and had some belly dancing going on. And I usually bring some music with me, but I didn't need it for this event. So I love finding old decoupage boards at the thrift stores and the flea markets. They're artsy, craftsy kind of stuff from way back when. If anybody doesn't know, take an image, put it on a board, cover it with resin, and scallop the edges of the board, very California kind of looking stuff. And it's somebody else's work that it might not be signed, or it might have been done in production. But when I find these, I scoop them up as fast as I can because they have great colors for the backgrounds. So I started working on this piece, thinking with these rulers that I find. They're fold-out carpenter's rulers. And when I was a kid, my dad did paneling jobs in old houses in New Orleans. Just really cheap paneling, just cover all the old wallpapers and stuff. So I was the unpaid helper. And he would do so much, I'd get bored. And I had his folding ruler, and I folded it out, and it was like a fishing pole. And I broke the last 6 inches off of his favorite ruler. Oh, I was in deep trouble.
Oh, no.
So this has a pass. But being from New Orleans, that ruler kind of idea is how high was the water in your house, how high is the water right now, how high is the river. It's always this depth reckoning. And so I was working out this idea and took a lot of these pieces, parts, and figuring it out. And so I made this bow and arrow kind of thing, and it's a commentary on actually where I'm going. It's this trajectory of going place to place and showing up in Stockton. Where am I going to go from the get-go from being in Stockton? So it came together. I used some vintage Lionel train tracks on it as the bow, and even some little bones in here that come from Louisiana. A friend of mine found a giant hawk's nest in the woods, and all around this oak tree was a graveyard of all the little rats and mice and little varmints that hawks have eaten over years and years. She gave me all these pieces. So I started working out this imagery with this Native American icons too. And I started it at this gig. I did more at the Throwback Thursday on Miracle Mile, and then I finished it up at home. So it wasn't quite an instant art piece. But once I was done, I called it Arrow/Write and Write a Direction. Write, W-R-I-T-E, and R-I-G-H-T. I do a lot of wordplay in my pieces, so it's like write my own direction and write it. Continue on this path, though it zigzags, that I'm going forward, and where the next horizon is, I'm not sure. It could be in front of me, could be behind me, but I'm definitely on this path. So when I finished up, it's like I said, it usually has 50 metaphors wrapped around one. So I'm really happy about this piece, and it's on my website too, which is www.deluxewest.com. People can see everything on there, from small to giant 12-foot rocket ships.
So do you have any idea of what's next? What you're going to be doing?
Well, we were lucky enough to find a little house for rent where we could park our camper and our cats can have a yard. We've been living in our camper all year long, so we couldn't find a place here in town or in Lodi that was close enough that we could live in the camper where I can do my art. We have a lot of parameters to our traveling, and it all sorts out. And so it's been nice to spread out a little bit. But we're looking forward to being back in a camper and hitting the road. We're going to be here till the end of January. Definitely going to be doing more of events. I've got several other emails and calls into different places that I can do my thing for the venue and for the public of Stockton. Seems when I got here, I was looking for art in town, and there is a lot of art going on.
There's a ton of art. And I think you'd really be good over at the Podesto, the Teen Center.
Yes.
On El Dorado with Kristen Reneker. Mm-hmm. So I'll get you in touch with her.
Fantastic, because I like working with kids and stuff. And there's some other aspects, but I'm going to be leaving here about the end of January, and not sure where. Probably going to go back to Colorado for a visit and pick up, either drop off my completed art that I have, or pick up more to go and do another show, or just to bring along with us so I can have a full gallery's worth if I need it. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of juggling, because we have to live in a camper, and whatever I bring has to fit in a truck. Yeah. Like the stuff that we're here. When we got this little house, we didn't have any furniture or anything. We went to the thrift stores and a couple of garage sales, and we furnished a house for $20, and I told my wife, I said, do not buy anything you love, because when we leave here, we're selling it. We're going to have our own yard sale, or we're donating it to the landlord, or it goes back to Salvation Army. It's like, so don't buy anything you love, because it's like we're over at Best Buy. It's like, boy, it'd be nice to have a 50-inch TV, but it has to fit in the camper. I'm not shipping a TV to put in storage back in Colorado or something. So this is an ongoing thing that we can accumulate, and then we let loose. Same thing with the art raw materials. I can find a ton and I let loose. I was so tight with it all for so long until Burning Man 2016. I got a grant to go to Burning Man and do a guild. And I'd never been there, and I pulled in 5 friends as my guild, and with the idea of teaching people assemblage and giving them a piece of wood and hammers and let them go at it. And I thinned out my shop of 10 years, and I think I let loose about half of what I had, put it all in boxes that would burn too, no plastic containers, everything would have to burn. We built a severely strong work table, bench, and we had a 20 by 20 booth. And from the time we opened, it was 90 miles an hour. I had 10 chairs for like 10 spots. We had no less than 12 and sometimes 26 people, shoulder to shoulder, swinging hammers, going at it. And at the end of 4 days, they made 350 pieces of art. We let loose of about half our stuff. And at the end of the week, we had to make room for the man to burn. So we packed everything up, and everything that was wood, we put in the pile and used it as kindling to light the man on fire, along with all the other gills. Mm-hmm. And so we just let loose all this stuff, and it set me on this path of letting loose. And so doing workshops around the country, this is going to be fun. And it has been. It's been almost a year, and it'll be at least another year of traveling.
So I just wanted to, when I saw you at the Peaceful Holiday Faire, you were talking about keys, and I just want you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, the keys, I use a lot of keys, and actually, my wife and I were having a walk around the neighborhood, a Miracle Mile neighborhood, a couple of days ago, and we're talking about our plans, and we're talking about what we've done and where we're going, and her nursing career and my art career and stuff, and we're hashing it out just like anybody would when we're talking. And there's a little telephone pole, and it catches my eye. I'm always looking around, catches my eye, and there's a red key stuck in a little piece of metal on a telephone pole, waiting for somebody. It was just sitting right there, waiting for somebody, caught my eye. And then right above it is a little metal plaque that says JP, me and my wife's initials, right above it.
Oh my God.
And this has happened to us a lot in the 20 years that we've been together. And this was just one of those divine things. Here's this little key, just waiting for me. It's sitting there. It knows I'm coming. And whoever put that there knew somebody would see it and would get that. And keys have a very special meaning. It's obvious metaphors. The locking in, the locking out. But we rented a house in New Orleans for 7 years, and then Hurricane Katrina took everything we had. And the good thing was that we were renting a house that we could throw everything away after we were done. But we had these keys to our house that wouldn't work anymore because everything was so swollen up. I had to break in the doors to get in the house. And my landlord, who I saw one time in 7 years, never raised the rent, he was adamant. He wanted those keys, even though the locks were all shot. He grew up in that house. He wanted these keys. Our neighbors had parked their little Miata car in our driveway because it was higher than their driveway. And it was ridiculous because the water was like 10 feet in the street. So their car was in their driveway, totally ruined. They have keys to their car. All these people I know had keys to their grandmother's houses, sheds, locks. All these people I knew had keys that didn't go to anything anymore except for memories and the feeling of it and what it meant and what it went to. And that's a tough one. And after getting to Colorado, I would get keys at flea markets. I'd find them. People would donate them to me all the time. And one time in Durango flea market, it's like a 20-pound peanut container full of keys for $20. And it took me a while to use those up. And when I did a shrine for Burning Man this year, I'd used all my keys, like 250 keys that I had. I used them all on this big shrine that I built for this year. And then all of a sudden somebody gives me a box of stuff, and there's another 20, 30 keys in it. So I use the keys as these metaphors all the time, and I don't have to search them out that much or buy them on eBay or something. They just they come to me, and most people, if you mention this or you talk about it, they'll realize that in their own self, in their own life, these kind of things. So, yes, it has special meanings.
Very good. So, Don, how much should I wrap it up? Or? Yeah, that's fine.
Well, do you want to talk to just about Stockton a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Your what is your perception of Stockton?
Well, for me and my wife, a lot of times neon signs are the telltale sign of where we eat or what motel we stay at or bar that we go drinking at and stuff. And Stockton's got a lot of neon. Sacramento had a lot of neon. Davis had some, but we like that kind of aspect, this older feel. And when we first went downtown, wanted to see what it was and the ornate buildings and what the potential was at this time, but what the life was way back when in the glory days. And we went downtown and just reveled at the look of buildings, and if people were actually living in them still or what was going on. What we marveled at was that the streets were so clean that it didn't look like much action was going on, but the streets were really cleaned up. And so we're coming out to all these romantic ideas and stuff, and we're down on Main Street and come across this little thrift store. Go in there and meet this guy, Ruben, and it's on Main Street off of California. And Ruben was a character. His place was full up of stuff, and he sold me this leather hat, and I got this little cross-cut saw scabbard, like sheath kind of thing I'd never seen before, and he told us stories. And so the characters that we met here, and we met in the motor court in Davis, reminds us of the South. Where so many people have personalities and stories and this and that. And so we were looking for like old man drinking bars, and we found a couple of places here, and then we looked for cool places to eat and different spots around town, flea markets, thrift stores, and there's plenty of thrift stores. And then 4 flea markets here in town.
Oh, yeah.
And I shouldn't be buying more stuff. I shouldn't be getting more stuff, but I can't help it. There's treasure everywhere. So this has been like a couple of months of the hats. I got my one hat from Ruben, and I was at the Fairgrounds flea market, and these little girls were selling 3 things for $1, whatever it was. And it was all dollar store kind of stuff spread around. And there's this cool, like, funky felt hat. I was 6 and I put it on, and the lady was like, "Oh, it looks good on you." I was like, "Okay, I'll take that. I'll take a toothbrush and a razor." Okay, that's like, and I'm walking around and people are looking like, because I've always dressed cowboy or Indian. I'm part Native American, Louisiana Indian, and Cajun. But coming out west, I'm dressing Western, and there's not too many other folks. So folks are looking at me like, "Where'd you come from?
Have you met Michael Pearl from Art Expressions?
No, I don't think so.
Because he's always dressing with a Western hat, and has a big mustache, and he does a lot of wire work. He bends wire into all different shapes, usually like portraits and different things.
Wow,
we get it. I gotta get you in touch with him.
Oh yeah, well it's the story. It's the story. Wherever I go, I try to figure out some of the story, but being a newbie and just. It's all fresh. I have no animosity or any preconceptions come into it. And as soon as I got to town, my friend who's a bartender in Brooklyn says, "Now you have to go find a book called Fat City." And I was like, and that movie came on last night on TCM. And I was like, oh, it's Stacy Keach and a young Jeff Bridges. Like, and it starts out and it's Stockton downtrodden in 1972. And it's about a boxer on hard times. And it kind of reminded me of what's going on right now at post-recession and rough parts of town, but coming back. But the heart, just like we went to Monterey and saw what Cannery Row is now. Mm-hmm. Nothing like the Steinbeck book, mm-hmm. which was at a garage sale in Stockton, and I come across a first edition Cannery Row by Steinbeck for $1. Wow. Like, wow. Okay, these things come, so I'm behind on my reading to catch up with where I am now. But watching this movie last night, it was something else. And there's an old boxing place on California that I saw the garage door open one day. Yeah. I've not seen it open since. And I'm not a boxer. I couldn't handle something like that. But I'd like to go and see if they have, fights sometime or whatever. When I was a kid, I used to go with my dad to these little boxing rings that would be in the back of old basketball gymnasiums and stuff, and see all this stuff. So there's a lot of soul here in Stockton still.
And you said you went were able to go to the Bob Hope Theater. It's the Fox Theater on Main Street.
Yes.
That's one of our treasures.
Yes, we were just driving around, and all of a sudden there's this beautiful, ornate Fox Theater. And we had seen one in Merced, and there's also one in Modesto, and somewhere else. But the Vintage Neon page on Facebook, the guy told me that these theaters, though they look the same, they're all done by different designers, different architects and stuff. So we were driving by, and there's a Bob Hope Theater, and then one Saturday there was a matinee with Young Frankenstein playing. So we definitely were going to that. We went and saw that, and the giant organ that comes up out of the orchestra pit. This is old world kind of stuff. And I don't remember who the MC was, but he was an amazing speaker and did a great job of promotion, and his voice was great. It was like showman, total showman. But I saw Young Frankenstein when it first came out at the theaters, and not at a theater like the Bob Hope Theater. And we were supposed to go Sunday night to go see Dwight Yoakam, and hadn't been to a concert in a while, and Dwight Yoakam had to cancel due to bronchitis. And so I had my best cowboy outfit on, all ready to go, and get a message. It's like, so they're rescheduling for January 6th, and that would have been a good one to see. But that's me. I love the old Art Deco and old style, anything with soul that has what I call thickness. It's thick.
So are you going to be able to go when he reschedules?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Really open. So it should be fun. Tickets these days are it's a lot more expensive than go and see Electric Light Orchestra in 1977 for $5. Or go and see Yes for $5. You know what? But I'm aging myself. That's.
Have you been on the top of the Hotel Stockton yet?
No, I have.
You got to get up there.
Is like a big patio bar patio, bird's eye view of everything. What's the name of what do they call it up there?
Bella Vista. Bella Vista. There's been so many, the Bella Vista restaurant is below, and then they serve some food and have some music upstairs sometimes.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The other, actually, now the best view of the whole area, if you go into the new courthouse, up, I think it's the 12th story, it's like the jury room. And they have a balcony, and you can go on the balcony, and you get a whole panoramic view of the city.
Oh, cool.
So That's one of our best.
Do they do background checks before you get out there?
No.
Okay. Okay. My political activism could say, "Oh, sorry, you can't come in."
You have to go through the metal detector. And
well,
then
with
you
all
can
the,
go
all
there.
the jewelry and everything else, it would take me a half an hour to get undressed. It's like I always use my boots right now don't have silver tips or heels on, but I don't fly that often, but when I do, it's a process because I refuse to wear flip flops and shorts. It's like I come from an era where you dress when you fly, kind of thing. And last time TSA was like, so you're gonna have to take all your stuff and move over there to get dressed. So no, you made me get all undressed. I'm gonna get redressed right here. Like youngsters in all black military, they're on a phone and stuff, but they're kind of like, I've never seen anybody like this. Anyway, don't mess with them. It's bad luck.
I wanted to mention about the neon. We just had at Delta College, at the junior college, they have a really wonderful art gallery, the Horton Gallery, and they just had a neon show.
Oh, really?
And so it was all about neon. And we have some local neon people. They were in the show. And what was interesting, they had a dance group, and they put on like black paint and had for a black light.
Oh, cool.
So they had a black light, and they did a whole dance performance. So they were like being like neon, and it was really interesting.
Oh, very cool.
And there's a connection. When we were down in Vegas, they have a neon museum.
I've never been there. The graveyard.
Yeah,
The graveyard and all.
You got to go there. So they have all the old signs. It's kind of a block long piece of property with a big fence around it. But they put all the signs in there, and then you get a tour through all the and you get to see all the old signs. And but in their waiting room, they had some drawings, and it said ad art. That is a Stockton company. So Stockton was making neon for Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
So we're like connected to all these different places.
Oh, man.
So I wish Stockton we could get a neon museum here.
Well, you could do a tour also. There's one of my favorites is a poultry market.
Oh yeah.
On Washington.
Oh, it's Lafayette and San Joaquin.
Lafayette, that's it.
Yes.
And there's the Chinese restaurant that's around the block. Their sign is right
on like Sam.
Yeah, on like Sam. That's a good one. And then what is the club? It's on Lafayette as well. It's the Cavour Club. Do you know this one? No. Oh, it's amazing. I think it's Cavour Club. It's on Lafayette as well at Union. Oh, okay. And I haven't seen it. It's an old bar. Oh, yeah. But it's like there's signs there for preventing gun violence and local crime and stuff like this. I don't know if they're having meetings or if the bar is actually open. So they have some good community announcements like in the window, but I haven't seen the bar open yet. And so I love places like that. I'd love to have a beer in a place that has soul, and look, and going to eat different places around town have been really cool, and try all the breakfast places, eating Miracle Mile,
So where have you been?
Coco Rose. Went to Sam's Diner. Saigon, right over here across the street, is really good. Is it Tommy's Diner up on Pacific? Wong's Chinese on March at I-5. It's about the best Chinese food I ever had.
Have you been to Chuck's? Chuck's.
No, I haven't
Chuck's
been
on
to Chuck's.
Pacific.
By the bowling alley.
Yeah. Gotta go into Chuck's.
I gotta go see Chuck's, and I'm a bowler as well, but I'm kind of a purist. I like the old school score yourself kind of places, and I hunt those out around the country when I can. But it's a long. A lot of that stuff's a long time gone. It's all automatic scoring. So, at least if they had the right Brunswick furniture.
Well, go in and check it out.
Yeah.
So I love what you said about that you came here with no preconceived notions. And just, I don't know, so many people have such things to say about Stockton, but I think we really have a wonderful city, so I'm glad that you've seen that.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, I don't have any problems with Stockton, and I've heard these, these comments or this idea of Stockton from other cities. From people in San Francisco or Lodi or even Modesto. It's like, and I've been to Modesto. It's no Stockton. No, sorry, Modesto. I like the thrift stores in Modesto too, and there's a great old theater, there as well. But I don't think Stockton has, really is like that. I haven't been a victim of crime. I haven't had any problems, but I'm not looking for it, and I'm not getting jaded from being here the whole time. I just want to enjoy and soak up the life that is here, and try and add to it. By being this crazy artist who shows up in town, does his magic, and then we're out of here like Mr. and Mrs. Lone Ranger. It's like, boom. And hopefully I leave behind a legacy of kids and adults realizing that they too can be artists, and that they look at a pile of trash or what they're recycling in a different way. And that continues on. And they start giving their relatives homemade gifts for Christmas, like I have forever. My family says, isn't there a Walmart in the city you live in? It's like, well, again, something handmade, something homemade kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I did this with love and kept it out of landfill. It's like, sometimes it's, after years, but I hope that people that I touch here do that, and start figuring it out, or adorn their doorway. Even simple things. You can see that things can be done with a personal touch and with love and with stuff that's already manufactured. And the stuff I use is what I like to call my favorite is the golden age of American manufacturing. I look for stuff in the thrift stores and flea markets that was built to last the last hundreds of years, because it had value, it had weight, and people wanted that value. My grandmother spent $2 on a toaster in like the early 50s, and she didn't have to have it rewired till the 70s or 80s because she used it every day. But she didn't want to buy a new toaster because they were junk, and she paid $2 for that toaster, and she was going to get her money's worth. And that stuck with me for the longest time.
So I think that's how I was raised too. You were saying about chronicling your experiences. How are you going to do that?
Basically, I try to make YouTube videos on my phone for just about every event, and put it out on my YouTube channel under Jimmy Descant. You can look at that. It doesn't quite work. I mean, if you play all, it doesn't go in a sequential order. It's a weird thing. I have to figure out how to make that happen. But I try to video everything I'm doing, at least a little introduction, then as it's going on, and then at the end, like with the completed works of art, I'll show, here's a board I'm going to use, is my setting. My wife will take video of me actually hammering and screwing stuff in, and then the looks of people walking down the sidewalk going, like at the movie theater in Davis, she caught this older guy. He stops, he looks at me, he looks at the posters in the window, he looks at the marquee, he looks around, he looks at me again, and he walks off. He didn't ask me anything, but it was one of the best reactions, and that is instilled in his mind. Guess what I saw today? I don't know what it was. But I still don't know what it is. I don't know what to think, but it's in his mind. And if he saw me in the paper, oh, that was this. Oh, okay, I saw that guy. And so, and I'm keeping a journal because I can tell you pretty much everything that I use as what the parts are and where I found it. And how much it cost me or didn't cost me, who I might have been talking to. So this is going to be kind of an ongoing storyline for this year into next year, and how I go down and my reactions. And I don't see it really as in book form, but who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows? Could compile it all, and I'd like to have like a big gallery show or a museum show at the end of next year with all the pieces I made through here. But I'm also trying to sell everything that I make to keep going as an artist.
So, you could, some of the shows you can like borrow from the people that bought them.
Yeah.
On loan from.
Yes. And show this, because you never know. I've over 20 years of being an assemblage artist. I've done a lot of art festivals. I've done museums, galleries, this alternative build in front of places for people. I've done commissions in people's houses and for their yards. I'm in a collection of Ripley's Believe It or Not. They have 8 rocket ships of mine, the vacuum cleaner rocket ships. And
so where is that? Is that in San Francisco? Or?
They're based in Orlando, Florida. Okay. But one of my rockets is in South Korea, one's in New York, one's in California somewhere, I believe. But they do a revolving thing, so they all get shipped to Orlando, and then they do their own photography, and then they put them wherever. So if I called up, I could find out where they are. But people ask, like, why Ripley's? It's like, well, the guy who's the buyer for it saw me at a show in Michigan at a museum, and he couldn't believe the stuff that I was using to make this stuff with, and all. And we had a pretty good run there for a little while until his boss said, okay, no more rocket ships for a little while. And until he gets to be the director, they've got 8, but the kids, have full explanation. So kids look at it, and then the parents look at it. That's a vacuum cleaner. That's a vacuum cleaner. That's a hood ornament. So it's a teaching moment for kids and adults. And I have one rocket in the Mayo Clinic. They have in Rochester, Minnesota, they have a giant art collection. And I had a client in Michigan who bought a bunch of my stuff, and he donated a vacuum cleaner rocket to the Mayo when he was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. It is one of the most outgoing personalities who love life and food and wine and all, and it was a tragedy, and I went to see him a couple of times, and to see him lose the senses except for his hearing and his sight, and this kind of thing. But he wanted this to go to the Mayo Clinic, and so I set that up, make sure that was right, with them and stuff, and miss my buddy Bob. He was something else, and just a great avid art collector and appreciator of life. And who else? I've got stuff all over the place. And Ogden Museum of Southern Art in New Orleans, where I did my very first live art performance on stage with a severe rock and roll band that I'm friends with in New Orleans. I had an exhibit of Louisiana-shaped pieces in 2012, and the museum poured them out, and we can't afford to buy one of your pieces or whatever. I said, okay, I'll fix you. I'm going to make a piece on stage at the museum, and I'm going to donate the piece I build on stage to the museum. to be in a permanent collection. I said, well, yeah, we could do that. And so I told the band that I know, I said, this is how this goes. And they're like, you're on stage with us? I said, yes, I'm 5th member, and I'm going to make a piece of art on stage. So it was a Saturday afternoon, matinee kind of show, and they're standing. The museum people were standing with fire extinguishers. And I get on stage, and the singers jumping around like I'm painting. I got fire going on, and they're like, and after an hour and a half, it was finished. I threw my work table off the stage, destroyed it, ran through the crowd with a completed piece, and hung it on the wall that I put a light on, and then signed it. And everybody was like, I've never seen anything like that before. And then I took it off the wall and gave it to the museum curator. Here, this is yours. And it was all videotaped and everything else. It was insane. And the band was freaking out too. And we all had a great time. And so I'm looking forward to doing that again.
And that is Jimmy Descant.
Well, thank you, Joe, for letting me let you talk a little bit in there. Appreciate that.
And we're so happy that he came to Stockton, and you actually came to the Reynolds Gallery. That's amazing.
Sure.
And so I'll see you next Tuesday with a new guest.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for having me, and enjoy lifestyle. There's plenty going on, and there's more to come.
Right.